there, Buttercups. Your resident Teabelle here. Welcome to Hark, 'tis the Teabelle. Let's dive in for that tea today, huh? Well, Buttercups, today we are going to be exploring the Savannah Theater. The historic Savannah Theater was built in 1818 and can be found on 222 Bull Street on Chippewa Square. It is considered one of the oldest theaters in the U.S. And it surely has a history to past. December 4th, 1818 is when the doors officially opened to the public. And they were presenting The Soldier's Daughter and Raising the Wind. A well-respected and popular Savannah architect we all know designed the theater, William J. We all know him well, very well, in our beloved Savannah. Now, was a three-structure building featuring highly detailed wrought iron at the front along with its glamorous sign. Amos Scudder was the mason who constructed the building. I did go on a little bit of a deep dive and found out that he was born on March 17th, 1813 in New Jersey. He moved to Savannah at the age of 4, where he would become one of Savannah's most prominent citizens. He would, of course, enjoy summers in New Jersey and claimed it as his home, and he was a jack of all trades. He worked as a civil engineer constructing many brick cisterns in these squares to retain water for the fire department. He worked as a builder. In addition to the theater, he built the Independent Presbyterian Church and the Archibald Bullock Home, among other things. I'm sure, should we go on a deeper dive, there's more that he helped build. He worked as an architect designing some homes. He also served on the city council from 1830 to 1839 as an alderman. His most famous work was with the Savannah, Ogeechee, and Altamaha Can Company. He built or repaired many sections of the canal. He also served as president of the canal's board of directors from 1837 till his death. The canal experienced many issues prior to his involvement, where it thrived. The company thrived due to his work and foresight. He was a key feature of the economy in our beloved Savannah, Georgia, from the 1840s into the 1860s. Sadly, he passed away in Plainfield, New Jersey, where he was buried in June of 1956. So, that's who helped build it. The interior was decorated by William Eddy. He painted murals of dramatic scenes featuring gilt eagles, green wreaths, and crimson panels. Now, the early years were rough, and the theater changed hands several times. It took a stable stock company to organize things in 1838 for its luck to change. They incorporated the theater by December of 1838, and it became the premier source of entertainment and would host popular songs of the day during the antebellum era. Now, to be clear, the antebellum era, the years were 1812 to 1861. Okay. Now, among the many better-known stars that brought their talents to this oh-so-popular stage, the older brother of John Wilkes Booth, Edwin Booth, made his appearance. No known records show that John Wilkes Booth ever performed in the theater. It is possible, though, that he performed a Shakespearean play at one time in Savannah. Though tragedy does not leave anybody alone. Okay? A hurricane tore throughout Savannah and caused immense damage on August 31st of 1898. This is when the roof was ripped off and the auditorium was turned into a pool. In 1906, a fire occurred and required remodeling. As his second time being restored in, just a decade, it received a new brick facade which completely disregarded the original design. Now, despite the obstacles, it continued to be the main attraction for plays, music, and other events. It did fall out of favor with the city with the creation of the municipal auditorium in the Orleans Square. Now, tragedy leaves no one left behind. Another fire in 1948 caused yet another facelift for the theater. It was now giving an Art Deco kind of vibe, and we know that Savannah is riddled with just situations, right? And so the new Savannah Theater that, reopened was a bit different. It was now a movie house, and it was open on October 21st, 1950. So the first screening was Mr. 88, and that featured Dorothy McGuire and Burt Lancaster. Now, unfinished business tends to be a frequent byproduct of life, right? The Savannah Theater clearly wasn't able to avoid it, and it had more of its fair share of mishaps. And no soul carries the burden of unfinished business more seriously than that of, a ghost. A soul trapped, something unable to move on, to let go of the wrongs committed, or just letting go of the past. And that's just what we know about them, right? Now, we are fascinated. Many people are fascinated by our beloved Savannah's history of hauntings, right? And while there are those who are absolutely fascinated and will visit, and that's their main reason, there are still the skeptics. And, I get it, because some people are very much of, if I can't see it, it does not exist. But I don't think that you should ignore that everybody has different experiences, right? Because there are a lot of people, souls, ghosts, however you want to refer to them, that have unfinished business. And they will not leave until they are satisfied. And you don't have to look very, very hard at all, do you? To be in Savannah to know that this is good. You're going to find something. Now, the Savannah Theater is obviously going to have such a history, because it does have its experiences from 1818. So let's put that in perspective. 1818 is 207 years ago now, right? So there are 3 ghosts that are more popular or choose to be seen more for the theater. And those 3 are believed to have passed away while at the theater. So we're going to go with the first one that they named Betty. So Betty was an actress at the theater, and she loved the stage so much that she was just so dedicated to it. She was unable to move on from the stage. Now, this means that she can be seen behind the curtains, dressed in her costume, ready to step out and give the performance of her life most nights. She never could give it up. And if she was that dedicated, can anybody be surprised or shocked, I guess? Can you be surprised that she would want to continue living her life in the way that she lived it? Right? So we have Betty. She's just actress of a lifetime and the afterlife. So, of course, now we have a young boy, which his name is supposed to be Ben. He likes the balcony where he harasses the spotlight operator. Now, because he is a young boy, I don't think he's doing it in a mean way or anything of that nature. He's just a little curious. Most boys are. And so, yeah, he's impulsive and he's a little bit aggravating, but he's a prankster. And he's just, he took it literal to be the life of the party into his afterlife. So to the spotlight operators, I hope you're cool with having a little assistant that is a little bit of a prankster. So, hey Ben, what's up, darling? Now, there also is, he's the most infamous spirit, okay? And this one is known as the director. This specific spirit spent his life living behind the scenes, right? And that's what directors do. They ensure that everything is done to their standards. And so, this director does enjoy every opportunity to step out from the shadows. And they do enjoying a little bit of recognition, finally, for what they achieved. He can't let go, though. Just like Betty, the actress, this director has such a passion in the afterlife, that he can still be heard critiquing performances and just being a director. And to that point, right, sometimes you get so into whatever you're doing that passion does go with you wherever you go. And that, in this case, would be to their afterlife. So, if you ever encounter the director or Ben or Betty, I would definitely tell you that keep in mind of who they are, what they were, and, deal with them in a way that seems, what's the word, fitting? I wouldn't necessarily be terrified, but I would definitely be intrigued myself. So, the Savannah Morning News claimed in 1895 that the Savannah Theater is truly haunted. I would love to see the article, how they wrote it then. And I'm sure they have it somewhere. And in this case, they were claiming it's haunted because police patrols would often hear applause and, well, other ruckus coming from the theater when it was closed. And no one could be found inside of it that was, well, living. Which, should we be surprised that audiences stayed, that they were still enjoying performances in their afterlife, right? This was such a common occurrence that the police just stopped really investigating because they knew what they were going to really find, which was nothing in person, right? So they just logged it in their books and moved on and just continued on their day. So another newspaper article that came from 1895 reported that the owner of this Savannah Theater also witnessed numerous times very odd things that couldn't be justified, rationalized, made tangible, right? So, apparently, early one morning, the owner decided to just start the day running, right? Hit the ground running. So, they were hoping to get to the theater prior to anyone else, and he opened the door, and he found that he was the first one there. So, woohoo! He also decided to check things, in the theater, and everything seemed to be good in the lobby, up in the balcony, and in the audience seats. So he continues to check out the backstage area where everything was in order. So he's probably having a really good day. I got here first. I'm seeing everything is great. Absolutely perfection, right? Well, last was the dressing room. He enters the dressing room and he is stunned to see that a small fire had ignited during the hours of the night. And it burned quite a noticeable hole in the floor. But nothing else was damaged in that dressing room, guys. The fire really just put itself out. You wouldn't have even known if it weren't for the circular hole burnt right into the center of the room, that anything had even occurred. Now, you're going to say, oh, it's just one thing. No, I'm fairly certain that this wasn't the only strange occurrence to happen in the dressing room. And it's true. One evening just before a big show, some female dancers were, getting set to perform. They started changing into their costumes when they felt, like they were being watched. Something not so nice, something probably a little evil. So, of course, they're a little bit nervous and probably really freaked out, and understandably so, because, how would you feel, right? So, they ran out of the rooms, forgetting that they hadn't actually finished changing. Which, the men probably were thrilled, but they were so worried and terrified that that was the last thing on their mind. So, something was in that room. Something that didn't want to destroy it, but it did want it to make itself known. So, we know it's haunted. But is it cursed? So, there are, thoughts that it is cursed. Now, the source of this might, just involve a penny. Not just any penny, but one from the year of, 1818 when it was built. Yeah. So, it's said that the penny was discovered when it was undergoing renovations. It was found stuck inside a brick wall. And the owner at the time, Fred Weiss, would carry the penny with him at all times. Not really as a memento from the renovation, but more as a good luck charm, if you will. And this is an important distinction, because it did seemingly have powers of good fortune. But this was going to change. In 1948, Fred went on a trip to New York, and while he was there, he lost his lucky penny. So, if we're going with the school of thought that this was a lucky penny, that it brought good fortune, then poor Fred was about to feel the pain, because everything went straight to HE double hockey sticks after that. The theater went ablaze, it nearly burned to the ground, and things just didn't go well. So, if you're following the school of thought that this penny was a good luck charm, right, then that makes sense. Now, we talked about Ben. He is that rambunctious young boy, right, who messes with the spotlight operator. So, there was a house manager by the name of Drew Jones, and she shared one of her many experiences to the rumored hauntings at the theater. And she was considered the resident ghost whisperer. So, Drew ran the spotlight for 2 years, and it seemed like every week someone was tugging at the back of her shirt, much in the way that a child would do when trying to get, the attention of an adult. But she would find herself alone. And so after a while, she realized that she really wasn't actually alone, right? It seemed that whoever this ghostly child was just wanted to help work the spotlight with her. And that he just wanted attention, which makes sense, right? So, there was a boy, that this is why they named him Ben. Because it is that behind this story is that he was named Ben in real life. He was playing near the spotlight and died for unknown reasons. Now, Drew would just feel Ben tugging, and she would turn around and just firmly say, "Not now, I am busy." Ben would politely stop. Drew was also featured on the biography channel's My Ghost Story, where she discussed the story of Ben. So, one thing about this that I absolutely do adore is the fact that this child, if he's a young boy, is comfortable enough to not only try to get this attention, the attention of this stranger, but Ben was also polite in the way of, hey, I'm busy right now, and just waiting. So Ben does have manners, right? Now, Ben probably isn't the only child from the afterlife. That has been spotted. Because children often aren't that comfortable showing themselves to everyone. But there is a little girl that has been seen from time to time. And there's no backstory, there's no names. She just really just wants to stand. She wants to stay in the shadows. She loves secrecy. She's moving around in secrecy. So this is why you can never just assume that there's just one or two different types of visitors in whatever place you're at. Because we know about the three big, Betty, Ben, and the director. We now have a lesser known, but more secretive little girl who prefers her anonymity. So, truthfully, there's really no way of knowing how many people or souls chose to stay in their afterlife in this place, in all honesty. In 2007, there was an experience by a woman. She was with a group of friends as a part of a ghost tour. Now, it wasn't very there weren't a lot of people there. And the closest people to her were actually several rows back. So it wasn't that everybody was crowded. No one was crowded, right? But she felt like someone was right behind her. It was a little bit unsettling, and she kept turning around. And it was almost the entire time that she was convinced something had to be there. But at the same time, she's like, maybe my eyes are, messing with me. And so, being caught up in the stories, she probably just went with it. So, the tour guide later approached her and told her that he saw shadows in her area near where she was sitting. And here's the thing. It's so easy to dismiss it. But in all honesty, we can't just dismiss it because sometimes our minds are unwilling to accept what we cannot put our hands on. And the case here is that, excuse me, you can never just assume it's one thing or the other. The Savannah Theater is beautiful. The Savannah Theater has done everything it can to be a major part of our beloved Savannah, right? It also is going to have that history so that continues to be a major part of the city. A city that continually keeps itself up and maintained because it is history. So if you are in the area and you have the opportunity, I would highly suggest at least going by, and if you can explore. But I do want to go ahead and say that if you have any good stories, just email us, at harktisthetbell@gmail.com, because we want to hear them too. And if you let me, I will share your real name and everything and be like, this is what Betty A did in the Savannah Theater and saw. And I'm absolutely sure people will just adore it. I would adore it if I'm being honest. But, alas, that is the tale of the Savannah Theater in our beloved Savannah, Georgia. Buttercups, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And if you did, and you have comments or questions or even suggestions on what we should be talking about, which I would totally go for, you can email me at harktisthetbell@gmail.com. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube, and the Facebook. All right. But I hope you guys have a spectacular week, and I can't wait to see you next week.